to do it now. Thank you, X-Infected. Thank you, Jerthka. Kind of like as a change of pace, I don't really think it's a good idea to go over the negatives first. It's better to really gush over this game. I mean, like, I was really mad on that last boss, but I can't let that blind me to the magnificence of this game. And it really is a magnificent game. It's really one of a kind. There has never been a game like this. It is an original concept, and that is so rare these days, or ever, I should say. It's a rarity at any time, because it's so much easier just to take a solid concept that has been done before, because it's the play it safe approach, you know? Why mess around with something that we know works? But Team Ico, they weren't going to do that. They could have easily just made this game like Ico, which was, from what I understand, more similar to The Last Guardian, in that you have environmental puzzles and you're trying to navigate through you know, climbing and shit like that. And there is a lot of that in this game too. However, this game is a boss rush. It is nothing but bosses. And somehow they managed to make that work, which is amazing. You know, they didn't need to pad it out with just having like a bunch of enemies that you fight. No, they didn't need that. And there's 16 bosses. And still managed to get a 10-hour game out of that. That's a lot of bosses. And at the time, it probably was atypical in how many bosses it had. Now, these days we have Dark Souls. Dark Souls 2 has a whopping 41 bosses, which is crazy. So the big draw to this game, I don't think I'm actually supposed to be here, is the puzzles of how to beat the bosses. So the first game, Ico, created a puzzle game where you're trying to figure out how to get through these environmental hazards. The developers managed to translate that into trying to figure out how to beat the bosses. And more often than not, they succeeded, because each boss and how to defeat each boss is very creative and unique. It's not easy to do that. You know, they could have easily fallen prey to repeating and rehashing some ideas, and they did do a little bit of that. I mean, there were two bull-like Colossi, but the method on how you defeat them is different enough that it feels fresh. And also the environments help a lot. Speaking of the environments, they're gorgeous. Like I said before, I really do think that this is one of the most artistically advanced games, especially for its time. You know, like, video games being art really wasn't even a concept until this game came out. Or I should say, until Ico came out. Ico was the forebearer, but then this one really cemented the concept of, you know, video games can be art. And while there are games that came before this that are considered art, I really do think that this was the game that finally, you know, started that conversation. You know, and then people started saying in hindsight, oh yeah, you know what, now that we think about it, Mario 1 was art too. And, well, that may very well be true for some people. In my opinion, there aren't a lot of games that are as artistic as this one. This vast open space that you can run in, that you can ride your horse in, is so amazing, and it's such an achievement when you consider that this is a PlayStation 2 game. Unfortunately, you know, sometimes the hardware has trouble keeping up with the visuals, so there is quite a bit of slowdown. But for what it's worth, it was a real technological achievement. It's one of the most beautiful games ever created, and that is due to the talented artists that worked on this game. So now, even though it is open, you do progress in a linear fashion. So, as far as I know, and I could be mistaken about it, you can only beat the bosses in order. You can't beat them out of order. Again, I could be wrong about that. So, even though you have this wide open space to explore, there really isn't a lot to explore. You have to go from one Colossus to the next in order. But despite that, it's still fun. And it has a powerful, this open area has a powerful psychological effect. If you want to run around aimlessly, you can do that, which is what I'm going to do right now for the purposes of this review. Now, what this game did was it was genre defining in a lot of ways, because you could climb on top of enemies. You could climb on top of those bosses and hack away at their weak spot. Now, that sounds trivial, but it's not. Because all games prior to this, and many games subsequent to this game, anytime you were faced with a giant monster, you either had to hack away at their ankles, or you had to shoot arrows at them. And there was never any deviation from that. And that's still true in Dark Souls, which is still a fantastic game, but it hasn't really caught on to the whole climbing on top of enemies thing. This game influenced games like Dragon's Dogma and also Castlevania Lords of Shadow. They implemented this climbing system, and it made those games so much deeper and more rewarding in the way that you could attack and kill enemies. And it's all due to this game doing it first. You know, they showed that, you know, it doesn't need to be hacking away at ankles all the time. We can think of new ways of defeating large and powerful foes. The story, you know, I would be remiss in not mentioning how good the story is. It manages to tell a really good story without it being intrusive, and without there being a lot of talking. In fact, there is no talking. They're speaking a different language. I mean, they're talking, but you can't understand them. It's a made-up language, which is still cool, because it feels like it's its own universe. But even though there is talking and there is dialogue, it doesn't rely too much on it in order to tell a compelling story. It leaves a lot up to the player's interpretation, and I think those are the best kinds of games. The best kinds of games are able to tell a story with as few words as possible. Sonic 3 and Knuckles did it. And you'll notice that the worst stories in Sonic are the ones with the most talking. You know, sometimes less is more. Even if you don't understand the story, it's okay, because you know, you can feel that there's something deeper here. Even if you don't understand it all, you know, there's something at work here. And, you know, that gives rise to some really interesting discussions online on what it all means. You know, and no one is really right or wrong. You know. It's just a point of view. The music is really great too. There are some like stock sound effects. I heard them from time to time. But, you know, that's kind of par for the course, and since they're giant monsters, I can get that. But really, the music sets a lot of, like, tone and atmosphere, and emotion as well. every time you defeat those bosses, you know, you kind of feel sad. That's kind of interesting because this main character you play as, Wander, I don't even like him. You know, he's kind of selfishly killing all of these Colossi just to save that girl. And while you might feel something for the girl, you do feel that Wander is pretty selfish in doing what he's doing. And every time he kills those Colossi, you get this kind of sad, melancholy music that has an emotional impact on you. You know, not often do you feel anything when you defeat a boss. You know, but this game somehow figured out a way to do it, and that's not easy to do. So with that said, this game isn't perfect. For one thing, there are a lot of frame rate issues. You know, it does slow down a lot, especially when there's a lot of action going. The camera kind of sucks. It has a mind of its own. When you're just riding around like this, it's not too bad, but when things get cramped, it goes wherever it wants to, and when you try to position it correctly, it then tries to go back to what it wants, what it thinks the proper camera angle is. Which is really annoying. It's not a deal breaker by any means, but it is something worth pointing out. The other really bad thing are the horse controls. Like here, I'm gonna stop right now. This horse is so hard to control. If you just push forward, I'm pushing forward now, he doesn't, he's walking right now. Okay, he's at a standstill. If I push forward though, I'm pushing forward right now, he's not moving. That to me doesn't make any damn sense. He should at least move a little bit. He should walk. I'm pushing forward, why isn't he moving? I can kind of change his facing, but it's so clumsy. I mean, like, he even, like, behaves clumsy. Like, he's going all over the place. He feels like a wild horse, and there could be something to be said about that, like, you know, when he's wild and untamed. But it's really frustrating when things are kind of cramped and you just want to go to where you want to go. The horse controls in this game are just not that good. I mean, look, how long does it take for him to start get going? It's irritating. At first, it's tolerable. He's kind of wild, goes all over the place. But as the game goes on, it becomes annoying. The other issue is how you find the Colossi. You have to hold your sword up and then a beam of light comes. And it tells you where to go. But, like, if I followed this, you know, I'm gonna go smack dab into a brick wall. This happens all the fucking time. And it's kind of needless. There is a map, but this map is useless. It tells you nothing about where you need to go. Too often, a good chunk of the game consists of you trying to figure out how you're supposed to go to the next Colossus. And it's not like it's clever or interesting level design or anything like that. It's like, this beam of light is telling me to go into a brick wall and I don't know how to get there. So it would have worked if there weren't lots of cliffs and brick walls in the way. But, you know, inevitably that's gonna happen. I could mention a little bit about the swimming physics. I mean, I could like nitpick a lot of other things. The swimming, you know, it's a little slow, but it's tolerable. You know, it's not anything really worth whining about. The running animations for Wander are, you know, kind of wild and crazy. But that's also how Ico ran. So, you know, I guess they all have this weird, crazy walk to them. But this is a fantastic game. It's really original. There's never been a game like it. And I highly recommend everyone check it out. Because it is fantastic. And that's all I gotta say. Alright.